Thanks for joining me again. As I mentioned last time, today we're going to look at an overview of how polycystic kidney disease has affected my life. And to be honest, it's been affecting me for a lot longer than I realised until I got properly sick. So yeah, without further ado, let's have a look at it. So my polycystic kidneys were actually impacting my life a lot sooner than I realised. In hindsight, I can see what was happening now, but a couple of examples. I get quite a bit of pain from either my cysts or my kidneys rubbing on other organs or rubbing on my ribs or wherever they feel like rubbing. And there was a time a couple of years ago when one of my cousins was visiting and she was helping me stack firewood, and I'd moved maybe 2 wheelbarrows of firewood and my back was in excruciating pain, and that was really frustrating because I wasn't super fit, but I was fit enough to stack firewood, and I couldn't understand where the pain was coming from. And I think I actually had to stop before the job was done, and my cousin finished the job of stacking the firewood. So thanks, Heather, if you're watching. Another example would be brain fog. So I will sometimes be in the middle of speaking and then I will just completely lose track of what I'm thinking, and it'll take a few seconds for me to get back to the line of thought and carry on the conversation. You'll see that sometimes in these videos. I'm not going to edit that out. It's just part of dealing with what I'm dealing with. And final example, and this is a bit of a weird one. My knee tends to give out. Well, now both my knees do, but before I was getting really sick, one of my knees tended to give out, and I always put that down to just being tired or stressed, because I was in a fairly stressful work environment. But it turns out it's actually your muscles getting weaker as a result of kidney failure. So I was experiencing all those things before the diagnosis of low EGFR in the early 20s. So before I knew my kidneys were getting really bad. Those things continue to a greater extent now than they were at that time. It was actually frustrating not knowing what was happening. Like I say, I couldn't understand why my back was so sore. I kept getting this losing track of my thoughts, and I thought there was something wrong with my brain, something wrong with my ability to think. It turns out, well, there was, but it turns out it wasn't some innate problem. It was because of my kidneys. So now, since I've been diagnosed, one of the big changes in my life has been expectations. The expectations of what life's going to bring, both for myself and for my wonderful wife. For myself, I used to ride motorbikes, and I've been looking forward for about 20 years to having a motorbike once the kids leave home. And around about the time in the early 20s, when I found out my kidneys were failing, I had started looking at advertisements, trying to figure out how much I was going to need to spend to get a motorcycle, and I was pretty excited about that. Unfortunately, as we got into the process of finding out that my kidneys were working less and less well and were getting bigger and bigger, I found that sitting upright for an extended period of time was very uncomfortable. I could actually feel it squishing stuff in my abdomen. That still happens. I have to, if we're going on a long car trip, I will, by long I mean more than about 10 minutes, I'll lean the seat back. Obviously not driving, but I'll lean the seat back to give a bit more space in my abdomen. So obviously I couldn't safely ride a motorcycle. At the time, I was really disappointed about that because I had been looking forward to this for a long time. But to be quite honest, if I knew it was coming, it wouldn't have mattered that much. And the other expectation for both my wife and I is we thought we'd be able to travel a bit, especially as our kids have moved to Aussie. We'd like to be able to go and see them. But I'm tied down to this machine, dialysis 3 times a week. If we travel around New Zealand, I can book in to a dialysis unit, but that's every second day. And if the dialysis unit is a reasonable distance from where we're staying, then my wife's going to have to drive me to the dialysis unit, hang around while I do my session, and then drive me back just in case the dialysis doesn't go very well and I'm too wiped out to drive back. So there you go, there's our expectation of travel gone. We can travel overseas, but it's pretty expensive to get into dialysis units when you're overseas. It must be said that I do hemodialysis, which you'll see a bit about later. If you do peritoneal dialysis, you can travel because you can take all your supplies with you. Unfortunately, my body's not up to doing that. So I was talking earlier about how my leg gives way. Whenever I leave home now, I take a walking stick with me, and I sometimes use it around the house. That's partly because my legs will give way at any time, but also I get really tired, and I can get tired quickly. So if I go for a walk around our block, which is just under 1.5 kilometers, I can be okay at the beginning and just carrying my stick and not using it at all. By halfway I'm leaning on the stick because I can feel myself starting to get tired, and then sometimes by the time I get home I'm barely crawling along using the stick. So that takes place within about 25 minutes to half an hour. So I can never predict when that's going to happen. The other thing, of course, is I get pain particularly from rubbing, and physical activity can aggravate that. So my back can get extremely painful when I'm walking, so I take the stick just to hold myself up when that gets really bad. Speaking of pain, that's another thing that's changed in my life. There are not many days where I don't have some level of fairly intense pain. Sometimes it'll only last for a few minutes, sometimes it'll be quite extended. It can be anywhere in my abdomen, really. The main places I get it are in the back under the ribs or in the sides, but it can be anywhere else. And the pain from rubbing is quite distinct from, say, pulled muscle or a strain or something like that. If I ever do anything like that, not the rubbing, but anything else, I'll just take a Panadol. But I'm on some fairly strong painkillers for when the rubbing takes place, and I try and take that as little as possible. So I need to balance the experiencing the pain, and it's slowing me down with taking painkillers, which are addictive, and that's not where I want to go. So I'm careful. Okay, energy levels. My energy can be variable, as in how much energy I have to do things. By way of example, a few weeks ago I recorded a video for this channel that took me about 10 to 15 minutes to record. It happened to be a day in which my back was really painful, and I had been so focused on getting the video done that I forgot to take the painkiller before I started the recording, which was not a good idea, because after this 10 or 15 minutes of recording, I went and lay down and slept for 2 hours. And when I got up, I didn't do anything else really productive for the rest of the day. So that's an example of how I have to manage my energy. I have made a decision that when I have a choice of spending my energy on anything, I will always choose to spend it on being with people. Depending on what we're doing, it can be tiring to be around people, but it's just too important for me not to spend energy there. So I will reserve my energy when I know that I'm going to have someone visiting, or I'm going to be visiting someone else, just to make sure that I'm going to get through the visit and be able to enjoy their company. So the final physical thing how this impacts me is constipation. So depending on which doctor or medical person you speak to, there's different reasons for that. Could be that my kidneys are squashing my bowels, which no doubt they are. It could be a chemical reaction to my kidneys failing, but for whatever reason, I can have fairly severe constipation. I'm on a fairly heavy dose of laxatives every day. Before going on dialysis, I would go for a week, and the record was 2 weeks without a bowel movement, and I can tell you that gets pretty damn painful. I'm fortunate now with dialysis and the laxatives I'm on that at most I'll go 3 or 4 days, and that doesn't always happen. So life's a lot easier in that regard, but I always have to be thinking when I'm eating, how's this going to affect my stomach, how's this going to affect my bowels, and when I start getting backed up, there's a distinct feeling of rubbing on my kidney over here, so I get a bit of a early warning sign. I think that's about it, but that sounds pretty miserable, really, living with polycystic kidney disease. So I just want to finish off by saying, when I finally started getting really sick in the early 2020s, I was, like many people in that situation, I was forced to look at myself, to look at my life, and to be quite honest, I wasn't very happy with what I saw. I had to acknowledge I really didn't like the person I was. And over a period of time, some of which was very difficult to deal with, I realised that I hadn't been treating people very kindly quite often in life, and I tried to reach out and find some people that I thought I'd treated particularly badly. Couldn't find any of them. I just wanted to apologise. And over time, eventually, after some pretty dark days, I was able to let go of what had happened, and I guess forgive myself for the way I behaved, and try and make a change in who I am. And I have to say that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have this illness. Given the choice of going back to who I was with no illness, or having the illness and having life as it is today, I would choose today, hands down, anytime. So that all this other stuff that comes with polycystic kidney disease and with renal failure is pretty miserable, and there are some days that are pretty hard going. But I'm quite willing to take that. I'm quite grateful for what has been brought into my life as a result of this disease. So while there's a lot of negative, there's a lot of positive too. All right, so I just want to say that not everyone's going to respond the same way to renal failure as I have. For some people, they're definitely not grateful for it. and I totally understand that. So please understand that this is my experience only. Looking forward for this channel, I just want to let you know that as I've mentioned, I have a limited amount of energy, which is variable. So I've pre-recorded a number of videos, and I intend to release a video each week. I'd like to do it more often, but I just need to be careful with my energy. Some of the videos are about the technical things that I do, such as dialysis or taking blood tests or that sort of thing. So I've tried to combine showing you what I do with how I feel about it and how I respond to it and that sort of thing. Other videos are about how this condition affects my day-to-day life or medical visits or that sort of thing. So I hope it keeps you interested. If there's specific questions you have that I haven't covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will do my very best to respond to everyone. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed it or found it interesting, I'd appreciate it if you could hit like. If you want to know more about what it's like living with end-stage renal failure, then go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.